Alayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashyakritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Gukarasto Andhakaro Vai Rukarasto Nivartakaha Andhakara Nirodhitvat Gururitya Vidhiyate Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So last week we started the mantra number 4, the commentary on mantra number 4, which was Shivena Vachasa Tva Girisha Chavadamasi Yathanaf Sarvamit Jagat Ayakshmam Sumana Asate. Well, this was the mantra that we were talking about. So we took that important example where we saw that there was a couple whose son was traveling, and because of the news that there was an accident, they had come to accept the fact that our son is lost until somebody came up and gave them a shockingly good news that their son is still alive. So we saw that example. So this is an important example because in our lives we accept the fact that I am a mortal being. You see, that's the thing what we have to see. We accept it. We may not like it. Like in the case of the couple, of course they were very displeased by the fact to know that their son had died, had met an accident rather, not died, but they met an accident. And even though they were not happy about it, obviously how can you be happy about it? That goes without saying. But they had accepted it. We had accepted it from all possible news items that were reported. It was confirmed by radio, etc. At that time, no television. So radio, newspapers the next day, people might have visited the site. So they said, yeah, this was a very tragic thing because there were a couple of railroad cars that flipped over and they were all first class compartments, and almost nearly everybody died. There were a few people that were saved, but maybe 4 or 5 out of 200. The rest had all died. So this was all confirmed, and this couple had accepted it. They are now in the process of trying to figure out if they can get the body, all those kinds of things. So similarly is our situation in life. This is what we need to see, because really in Vedanta the examples are not ordinary. They are very appropriate. We have to really think about that. So in our case in life, we accept the fact that we are mortal. We don't like it, but all possible information about mortality of us is confirmed. Yeah, of course. Supposing you ask anybody and say, you think is there any possibility of our being immortal? They'll say, no, not really. Because, they themselves are mortal, you are also mortal, I am also mortal, everybody is the same, and so you accept it. So that's the applicability of the example to our life. So we are firmly, when you say accept it, you firmly believe this is the situation. But then a voice somehow comes in, Shivena vachasa tva chavadamasi. Somewhere there is some kind of a very sound, somebody tells, hey, did you know that you are immortal? That you are the very nature of the same thing that Ishvara is made out of. All you wanted to do was to reach Ishvara, God. You are it. So, besides the fact that I don't understand this is such a surprise that my mind does not grasp it. But supposing I do grasp it, then the doubts start to come in. Why? Because same thing was true in my life too. Even though when I was talking about this at great length last week, that even though I was really shocked to hear from Swami Chinmayananji, but then over the period of several years, my worldly experiences were still very real to me, and I didn't know this fact, how it can really be true to me, that I am the Atma and so on. So a lot of doubt started to come in. And until you really remove those doubts yourself through mananam and nididhyasanam, you won't get the benefit of that revelation. So here this is an example. This is a very interesting example. Here the question is, how is it that the railway authorities didn't know that this person was alive? How is it that they didn't know? How can that be possible? So they said in this example that they had a general knowledge about what happened, that there were multiple bodies thrown out, and yes, there were a couple of people who were seemed to be very wounded but not dead. But there were very few and they didn't know who they were, their identification was not there. It was not possible for them to identify a couple of people. It was just not possible, because in the aftermath of this huge accident, they were very busy trying to cope up with this tragedy, and they were not capable. It's not possible for them to identify. Same situation is there in our life, because one can doubt, as I doubted too. Yeah, I think Swami Chinmayananji had said this to me, but I don't know. I don't know how is this possible. So these doubts should be seen to be like this. How do you know things? You know things through the use of your mental faculties, your mind. And the mental faculties rely upon its network of staff people that give you the data. Staff people means all the indriyas, all of the sense organs and organs of action, both of them. So they give you all the data, and after considerable thought, you come to certain conclusions that this is like this is like that, etc., etc. So you do all of that. Okay? Now the question, so this is exactly like the railway authorities were coping up with a massive tragedy, and they were busy in doing the best they could to help out people. So they had general knowledge that, some railroads had been flipped open. Not flipped open, flipped over. They knew that cranes would have to be brought in to make them upright. There was a lot of things that needed to be done. They were busy with that. That's what they were doing. So they had a general knowledge about it. But this particular knowledge, this is what is called Vishesha Jnanam. So there is a Samanya Jnanam, which is the general knowledge about things. They had that. But the Vishesha Jnanam, that this particular individual was badly injured but had not died, was not known to them. Because, possibly some ambulance had taken it away, or some doctor who had seen some signs of life amongst the wreckage took a few people, and in the confusion there was no way to find out if there was somebody alive or not. So similar is the situation that in our mind we have a general idea of what is happening. That people die, people are mortal, you actually have a life of sukha dukkha, of pleasure and pain. It's not just pain, it's also pleasure, etc., etc. So you know all of that. But there is one particular thing that goes missing, because the mind and all of the instruments of knowledge that we have employed throughout our life, and all of the people and throughout their lives, are unable to see this Atma. It's very much like you have a flashlight, and through the flashlight you can direct it anywhere to really find out, reveal some facts about what's behind this door, and you remove the ignorance about this, ignorance about that, etc., etc. You're doing all that. But the flashlight cannot reveal what makes it work. It's only meant to reveal things that are seen, not the seer of itself. Cannot do that. So similarly here also the mind cannot really find out. And so what needs to happen is, fortunately, someone has to tell me that really there is a sakshi, there is a person behind what you are functioning as a human being. There's a sakshi behind it who is making you to work, like in Kenopanishad. Kene shitam preshitam manaha. So here these very wise rishis, they approached the Guru and said, "Sir, can we ask you a question?" So this is the title of the Upanishad, Kena Upanishad. By whom? Kena means by whom. Third case. So he says, because simple people like ourselves cannot really ask this question. So our mind is working, our eyes are working, our hands are working, everything is working. So what's the big deal? I just have to figure out how best to utilize them. But this question appeared to the rishis, and they did not have the clear answer to that. So they said, impelled by what does the mind function? Because they could tell, it's kind of like a story, beautiful story about Kena Upanishad. They could tell that there is a functioning appliance. So now, when you see an appliance, for most part, you don't delve into the secrets behind how the appliance works. But supposing somebody has curiosity and the ability to go through, you can then ask, how does the appliance work? What makes it work? Because you can say that, the appliance itself is just a functioning thing, but you can turn it off and the light is gone. Turn it on and the light is on. What is this thing that makes the light go off and on? What is the entity? So there you have to really learn the intricacy of electricity, how it functions, how it empowers the lamp to light. All of that has to be done. So similarly, the mind cannot tell what impels it. And so therefore, we can now conclude that our life is very similar to this example, that the railway authorities could not identify this person, even though they were otherwise very capable. But this one particular knowledge about this one individual who survived the accident, they didn't know. That's it. And so they could not inform the person. But it so happens that one of the side passengers, who happened to be a friend of him, he was not badly injured, and he got onto another train and came and informed the parents that your son is alive. So similarly here also, even though my mind cannot tell that I am immortal, but an informed person who knows that I am immortal is capable of giving me this knowledge. And so we can conclude from this very beautiful example that there is no room for doubts. Because one can visualize in this example that when this person came in and gave them this news, they want to believe it, but they want to make sure that the person is informed enough to not bluff me. He's honest enough and bluff, because it's like all a question of verbal communication, that your son is alive. So tattvamasi, you are the very Ishvara that you seek. So these are all verbal communications. Nobody is going to just, there's no other way of getting immortality. So all that needs to happen is that the understanding that the railway does not know, they cannot know. As this person who happened to have that particular knowledge about this person did have it. So here there is one, before we go further, this is one interesting and an important thing. So there, two things are involved. One is called pramana and the other one is called prameya. Pramana and prameya. So pramana prameya means what is to be known. It's called prameya. For those of you that are learning Sanskrit, you will see how this construction comes about. The root remains the same, which is ma. Ma means to measure, to know. But how it gets declined determines whether it is a thing to be known, which is prameya, or by which it is known. The instrument of knowing is called pramana. So for example, it's very simple that you can say that this is this particular music. This is Lata Mangeshkar's famous song. So somebody hums it and you say, oh, this is Lata Mangeshkar's famous song. How do you know that? Because your ears are attuned to that tune. And as soon as it is heard, then your mind also gives its blessing and says, yeah, this is Lata Mangeshkar's song. That's how we function. But in doing so, there is in fact no ability for the mind to know, am I dependent on something? Who is triggering me to know this? What is knowledge? So here, going back to what I was saying earlier, there are two things involved. One is prameya and one is pramana. Prameya is the thing to know and pramana is the instrument of knowing it. Okay? So in the Shruti Vakyas, in the sentences of the spiritual knowledge, it is important to think about not only prameya but also pramana. This is what is called pramana vichara and prameya vichara. Why is this important? Because what I think is the best instrument for knowing, which is a combination of sense organs and mind, are in fact extremely unreliable. They seem to be truthful, but they have their own limitations and they cannot really functionally tell you what you want to know. No way. They are very deficient in the way their effectiveness is. How? So we can say that they also are not the final authority. They meaning the pramana that I normally use to evaluate things around me. That is not foolproof. It sometimes functions, sometimes doesn't function. It has a very narrow field of view. It does not see everything. So for example, the eye is only able to see things There's no other function for it. Ears can only hear things, no other function for it. The sense of touch can only touch things. So it has a very narrow field of vision. What in Sanskrit is called gochara. The gochara means the field of functioning is very narrow. It's not sarvagyatvam. He doesn't know everything. He only knows a few things. That being the case, this is not a perfect pramana. And so therefore, we look upon so in very short terms, I won't go into any more detail on this, I just want to mention it. In some few words, the pramana that I rely upon is good enough for vyavahara, for transaction, but it is inadequate for paramarthika sat. It cannot grasp the ultimate truth, no matter how high you try, how long you try. And that's exactly what the scientists are. They actually create some seeming progress in saying, okay, now we have found out something that we didn't know before, and so we're going to revisit all the facts now under the new regime of thinking. And so they come up with some new ideas, new ways of looking at it. Some people get PhDs because of that. Then finally they said, no, this is not quite as perfect as we wanted to. This has still some defects. That's exactly what quantum mechanics is doing, particle physics. They have some knowledge of the physics of the world, but it is very inadequate and cannot give. Therefore, we have to examine what can give me the proof that I need. So there we conclude that a direct sakshat, aparokshat vakya of someone who knows alone will suffice. Nothing else will be able to give me the facts about who I am. So this is called pramana vichara. And once you accept the pramana vichara, what is the appropriate tool for me to know, mechanism for me to know, then by utilizing it, you come to the vastu that is to be shown. So that's how it just goes. Okay. So now, as you know, the basic premise is, in this, the conclusion of this story, the premise is that I conclude that I am mortal. And a voice, Shivena Vachasa, comes to say that's not true. You've come to the opposite conclusion. You're not mortal. And I say, what? How is that possible? So it now goes through, as you know, in the Vedanta called Adhyaropa Apavada. Adhyaropa means that this is an adhyasa, this is a mistake. You are not looking at yourself in the right manner. If you did, you will find you are not immortal. There is no mortality, not a chance of mortality in you. So it's an error. It's a complete error. It's not as though that you are mortal now, but if you were to do the following things, then you will become immortal. No. You are already immortal, but you just don't know it. That's it, as you know very well by now. So, to know something wrongly is to say that I have adhyasa. This is the technical word in Sanskrit which means an error, adhyasa. So adhyasa means, there is a technical word for adhyasa also. It means atasmin tad buddhihi iti adhyasaha. Means that you have a tat buddhi. Tat buddhi means that it is this. Tat buddhi means that this thing that I am seeing is true, sat. On a vastu which is not true, you impose truth on a vastu which is not there at all. So the classical example of rope and snake, you give credence to the fact that this is a harmful snake. Snake is an important thing because, pardon me, it creates fear in you. So the snake buddhi is called tad buddhi, is there in something which is not a snake, which is actually a rope. So this is called atasmin. Tasmin na vidyate yaha atasmin. Here is the prefix which is a negation, not. Fine. So in effect the English translation would be concluding truth in an object which is not true. Assigning truth to an object which is not true is called adhyasa. So when you see something and you take it wrongly, then that's adhyasa. If we go further, we find that there is a special form of adhyasa. See, normally adhyasa means that you are observing things and you make a mistake in concluding which one of this thing is. Is it which one is it not? Fine, that's called adhyasa. But there is a particular adhyasa which is very damaging, ultimately extremely damaging to yourself, which is not an adhyasa of a thing away from you, but an adhyasa about yourself. If you make some mistakes about identifying something, that's okay. You can suffer the consequences of that, but it doesn't really do that much. But if you conclude wrongly about yourself, then we have a big problem. Because why do we have a big problem? It doesn't have to be a problem, but it is. The reason is you are immortal. Immortal means one which is untouched by space, time or other objects. You are totally free. You are swatasiddha. You exist by yourself. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. All those things we have seen. That's the nature of an individual. So now, if the nature of the individual is immortal and there is adhyasa, now we have a big problem, because the adhyasa means the opposite of what the truth is. So the opposite of immortal is opposite of mortal is immortal, and the opposite of immortal is mortal. And so if there is an adhyasa about yourself who is immortal, it's very obvious what that would be, that I am just a mortal being. Okay, this is called tadatmya adhyasa. There is a particular name for that. So it is not an adhyasa about a given thing, but if the adhyasa is about myself, it's called tadatmya adhyasa. So we studied this in the textbook Drikdrishya Viveka, this very fact. And what we studied there was that verse number 8, in fact, of Drikdrishya Viveka. And there we saw that the tadatmya adhyasa is one of three kinds: sahajam, karmajam, and bhrantijanyam. Let's look at each three of them individually. The first one is called sahaja tadatmya adhyasa. Sahaja. Sahaja means natural. This is the first one. The second one is karmaja. Karmaja means one which is done by which is function of karma, what particular karma one has done. And the third one is called Bhrantija. Bhrantya janayati iti Bhrantija. The one which is caused by Bhranti. Bhranti means Brahma, which means some kind of a wrong notion. That's all. So these are the three kinds of tadatmya adhyasa. Let's look at briefly on each one of them. You can see this. We discussed this in verse number 8 of Drikdrishya Viveka. Sahaja is not harmful. In fact, it is very natural. So sahaja means that whenever you take your reflection, if you look at your own reflection and you take yourself to be the reflection, that's natural. You are okay with that. There's nothing else that you need to do. Because if you say, no, I don't want to see my reflection, then you have a side issue. You can remove the mirror from the wall or something. But that doesn't cause a problem, because you know that's my reflection and you know that it looks exactly like you for most part, and you're okay with it. The second one is karmaja. So karmaja means the adhyasa with a particular body-mind complex. This one also is appropriate, because why you took adhyasa with this body depends upon the karmas done by you previously. And when the karmas the effect of all the previous actions go away, this Bhranti will also go. There's nothing else you can do. It's appropriate, it's natural, and it is potentially harmless. Then we come to Bhrantija, where the real problem lies, because I am not even close to explaining why I have this idea about mortality. I mean, I can figure it out, but it really doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It has complete irrelevance to reality. So these are the three kinds of tadatmya adhyasa that I have that can help me in analyzing where I'm making a mistake. So for instance, you can tell if my nature is purity and lack of any problems, then how is it that I got associated with this body? How did I get the karmaja adhyasa? So then Shastra says, okay, good, you are approaching the right way. It says the best way to find out what your adhyasa is like is to first understand your true nature. First ascertain your own nature. From there, you can start to resolve the conflict. So this is where the pramana vichara also comes in very well, because the Shastra says the first thing you have to understand is that your normal sense organ mind combination is useless, and so discard that as a pramana. You have to look at Shruti Vakya as a pramana, because there is nothing else that can make you see yourself. There is nothing that can give you the mirror to yourself. All other things are very defective. You can't do that. So therefore, do a vichara based on what the Shastra says you are. So this is where we have to do this Panchakosha Viveka in order to understand what the nature of the adhyasa is. So for instance, you ask a lot of people, are you the body? And some people will say yes. In fact, there is a section of thinkers who think that body is the Atma. It's not different from the body. It is the body. It is the Atma. That's what they say. So you say, well, okay, that's not true. Let me show you how that is not true. So another example is concocted. Is that supposing you get a phone call from your mother that your dad is very, very, very ill, you better come. This is what happens once we are in India and we are working in the United States. I mean, that happened to all of us, to me also. And you get this phone call, and then there is no way to get there within 24 hours. It takes at least 30 to hours by the time you go to the airport, get a ticket, all those kinds of things. So there is a certain delay involved. So this mother calls up his son and said, or her son, and said, your father is very, very sick and you better come right away. He's waiting for you. He's been saying that I want to die after seeing my son. I have not seen him for several years. So you better come. So this guy said, okay, I'll come. He quickly gets into the, goes, makes a reservation. The first fastest way to get there, he catches the plane, reaches home. And what he sees is, as soon as the taxi comes close to the house, he sees a lot of people crying, wailing and so on. And so sure enough, his fears are founded. He goes inside and his mother said, he's gone. He's gone. And the last words out of his mouth was your name. That my son such and such I want to see him. I'm very sorry that he's gone. So now look at this situation. The son goes and sees that his father just died, his body is still warm. And his mother is saying he's gone. If he was the body, how can he be gone? The body is still there, but he is gone. So that clearly means he is not the body. Something is there who leaves. What is that person? Now my curiosity is, because right now my thinking was this person that is moving around, that's him. But it can happen, I'm just sitting here like this and my heart fails and my body slumps. You can still see me, but I'm gone. So who is this I that is gone? So then the next one is, how the Pancha-kosha Viveka has to be done, which is best done in the Taittiriya Upanishad, because it talks there about all the koshas, all the coverings, Annamaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha, Manomaya kosha, Vijnanamaya kosha, Anandamaya kosha. So this is how the mistakes are made. That first you think I am nothing but Annamaya kosha means the body. But from this example we can tell, no. Why would the mother tell him, I'm very sorry that you could not meet him, he is gone? Who is gone? Where is he now? Because I see the body is still there. So the next possibility is Pranamaya kosha. That when the prana is there, the person is there. Prana means all the physiological, it's not the physical nature of the body, but the physiological nature of the body. That your eyes are blinking, your hands are moving, you are breathing, you can tell. You go to the doctor and the doctor says, okay, take off your shirt. I want to see how your lungs are working. So you take off your shirt and he or she just puts in the stethoscope and then says, breathe slowly. Take a deep breath. But suppose you are not alive, you cannot take a deep breath. So by taking a deep breath, this is what you do. Then the doctor will say, okay, do that one more time. moves the stethoscope at a different place. Good. Okay. Oh, right now that. Breathe normally. So our thinking is that really a person is much more subtle. It is nothing but prana itself. Maybe the person is the prana, synonymous with the prana, not the body but the prana, which makes the body alive, and when it leaves, the body is dead but the prana is still there. Maybe that's what Atma is. That's what the person is. So it is said, no, that cannot be the person. Why not? Because in the deep sleep state, prana is working, but all other organs are asleep. See, prana is working. So you say that's okay. That means he's the big person. He's it. So the example given is, can you think of an example where the main person, like a king of a kingdom, is working hard, but his subjects have all rested and gone to sleep? Not possible. That doesn't happen. Usually the people are all working and the Raja, the Rani, is resting, giving orders to people. Okay, this is exactly what happened to the Russian President Putin. You find that all the soldiers are fighting, many of them are dying. This is total havoc, and so much war going on, and Mr. Putin, all he does is to get up in the morning and says, how's the war going? Have you done this? Try this. And send the order to people so that they can report for duty. And then he says, okay, is my drink ready? My food ready? I wouldn't say he's enjoying, but he's just resting, not doing anything, while the whole country is so busy at war. Can you imagine if the whole country, all the people that report to him, were just having fun, and Putin is the only one who's fighting? He's out there with guns and so on and so forth. That doesn't make any sense. So the prana cannot be the main person, while the rest of his subjects are all not there. This is what happens in deep sleep. No. Prana is an important part of the person, but it is not the person. All right, let's maybe think it is the person is the mind. Similarly, it cannot be. All this is given in the Taittiriya Upanishad in a very systematic way. Mind cannot be the person. Why not? Because the mind keeps changing. It changes its stripes every second. 1 minute it's happy, another minute it's unhappy. Now I'm jealous, now I am this, now I'm that. Which one is it, the mind? Which part of the mind is the Atma? Is it the happy mind which is the Atma? Then if that happens, then how come it disappears and becomes unhappy? The thing that is, if you're talking about an Atma, means I want to really know who the person is. These are changing things that indicate something is going on, but changes are not a singularity of a person. Cannot be the mana. Then maybe it is the karta. So this is called Vijnanamaya Kosha. So that was Manomaya Kosha. So first we had Annamaya Kosha, then we had Pranamaya Kosha, then we had Manomaya Kosha. Then this is Vijnanamaya Kosha. Vijnanamaya Kosha means the person who wields the thoughts, I am this, I shall do that, this is my plan, I think I will do this. This is called a karta. Very consciously gets hold of your life and regulates it, makes it go here, there and so on. Maybe I should be the karta, Vijnanamaya Kosha. No, that's not true, because the Vijnanamaya Kosha itself disappears in the middle of the night. If that is the Atma, how can it disappear? Something that comes and goes cannot be the Atma. The Atma has to be, Atma means I. That has to be there without any changes. And like the Manaha, it keeps on disappearing. Alright, fine. Okay, alright, I understand. Cannot be the karta. Maybe we say it is the bhokta. Means that there are a lot of means at work and he employs all of them, but he is the one who reaps the benefit of it. He is the recipient. He is the bhokta. He is the one who is the enjoyer or the sufferer for that matter. Same issue. That cannot be, because sometimes I'm unhappy, sometimes I'm unhappy, sometimes I don't care, sometimes I'm screaming, sometimes I'm laughing my head off. Which one is it that I am? Not possible. I cannot be the. So, what it means is that I am the person who wields all these things together. I am not what is seen, but I am the Sakshi of all of them. That's the only way that one can conclude. But I have to see that for myself. I cannot take somebody else's word for it. I have to see this is how it works. Here's how the Sakshi works. Here's how it takes on various forms of error, but itself remaining the same. This is what I have to see. And so that only comes in through the removal of doubts one by one. And once this is done, all the time I remain the same person. It's not as though my moksha will means that I am bound at the moment, but I will be free after looking at it. I've always been free. I just did not realize that I am free. That's all. So this error has to be removed. So when that happens, that's the Tadatmya adhyasa with what is called Bhrantija. So this is what we keep talking about it. This is what Vedanta talks and says, that really the crux of the matter is, it is not experiential, it is to remove the false notion that I am a limited person. This is what needs to be done. So this is this completes the verse number 4 that we started last week. And so that number 4 is now done. So what I'm thinking, well, let us say a prayer and then I will tell you about what I think we should do going forward. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Okay, so some plans. So as you know, we have actually done the complete analysis of Sri Rudram based on the 2 texts before. And here we are now looking at a few mantras, 5 or 6 mantras that Swami Maheshanandji has given a public lectures on, and this is what we are doing. So it is not a word for word analysis, but an overall idea through examples on what is being said, what needs to be done, what needs to be thought about, and so on. Okay? So we've done 4 verses so far, and we're almost to the end of it. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is wind up this Sri Rudram set of classes, and today was number 31, by taking one more class next week. And next week we will do mantra number 5, which says Adhyavochadadi Vakta Prathamo Daivyo Bhishak Ahiguscha Sarva An Jambhayan Sarva Astuyatu Dhanyaha. This is the verse. So this will become our concluding verse next week. And so we will complete the 32 class course which got started in Sailorsburg, and we couldn't quite finish it. I think we took about 17 or 18, and so I wanted to complete it. So with this we will complete it. There are a couple of more mantras that Swami Maheshanandji has talked about, but those of you that know Hindi can read it in more detail in the textbook that I gave you. But for all essential purposes, this is now complete. So with that, I will take one last class next Thursday on the 15th at the same time, and then that will be the last class of this series. And after that, we will see what needs to be done. In fact, for the time being, I will not teach a class on Thursdays. It will be only on Saturday morning when I'm taking 2 texts, as you know. So one is the Aparokshanubhuti with the section on Nididhyasanam, and the second one is the Shankaranandaji's commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. So they're kind of like 2 classes within one. And then on Tuesday nights, we are finishing up the last 5 chapters called Brahmananda chapters of Panchadashi. So we are on chapter 12, and so those 2 classes, one on Saturdays and one on Tuesdays, will continue, but next week's class on Thursday will be the last one in the Sri Rudram series. So that's the plan that I'm thinking of. So with that, let me see if anybody is here. Okay, I see Panna and Shanti Kumar. So good for you to see that. And with that, I will conclude next week. Hari Om.